The twin sons of Violia cast long shadows across the palace walls, turning the crystalline towers into rivers of gold and amber. In the vast courtyard below, the hum of alien engines and soft chatter of attendants echoed faintly through the air. It was a calm morning, almost peaceful, yet Captain Marcus Hale felt a subtle tension he couldn't ignore. He had walked many worlds in his life, but none quite like this. The architecture alone, rising towers of translucent material, streets lined with glowing flora, and bridges that bent almost impossibly across deep chasms, was both awe-inspiring and unsettling. Marcus adjusted the straps of his protective vest and ran a hand across the hilt of his pulse blade, a gift from the Violean High Guard. Despite its alien design, he had quickly learned its controls. He was a human among beings who were centuries more advanced in technology, culture, and social hierarchy. Yet he had been chosen for a task that few humans could ever hope to be trusted with, to guard the alien queen herself. The queen, Lysara, was a vision of authority and grace. Her presence commanded respect without words. She moved with slow, deliberate elegance, her multifaceted eyes capturing every detail around her. Her cloak shimmered like liquid silver, and the crown upon her head seemed to pulse with a quiet light, signaling her connection to the world's core energy. Marcus had been assigned to her as part of a diplomatic agreement between humans and the Violean Council, an alliance meant to strengthen trade and defense ties. It was a gesture of trust, and Marcus understood that his failure could jeopardize that fragile bond. This morning, Marcus observed her from a distance as she walked along the balcony overlooking the palace gardens. Birds, or creatures that resembled birds but were made entirely of light, fluttered around exotic trees, their wings leaving trails of sparkling energy. Lysara paused, gazing at the horizon where the twin suns met the edge of the city. Marcus noted the faint tension in her posture. Even a being so powerful and controlled could feel unease. Something, he suspected, was not right. He had sensed it for days, a ripple of disturbance in the palace routine. Guards changing positions with unusual frequency, whispers that seemed just beyond his comprehension, and subtle alterations in the queen's schedule. Marcus could not yet name the threat, but his instincts, honed through years of military service and survival on unpredictable worlds, told him danger was near. As he moved through the halls toward the observation deck, he passed the royal advisors. Their elongated forms and flowing robes made them seem almost statuesque, yet their eyes flicked toward him with calculated scrutiny. Marcus had learned quickly that here, even glances carried meaning. One advisor's gaze lingered on him for a moment too long, and Marcus felt the first prickle of suspicion. Something was being hidden, and it was urgent. He arrived at the observation deck and leaned on the railing, scanning the sprawling city below. Flying vehicles darted between towers, leaving trails of glowing particles in their wake. The energy fields protecting the city pulsed softly, invisible to all but those trained to notice slight shifts. Marcus's human senses were limited, but he had been taught to detect anomalies in patterns, slight deviations in sound, movement, and energy. He spotted one such deviation, a shadow moving in the lower gardens that did not match any creature he knew. It darted quickly behind a tree, disappearing as if it had never been there. Marcus narrowed his eyes. No ordinary Violean would move like that, and no common animal could vanish so perfectly. His pulse quickened, not out of fear but anticipation. He had faced ambushes before on worlds where the terrain itself seemed to conspire against him. This felt similar, though far more sophisticated. He moved silently down the balcony stairs, careful not to draw attention. The shadow reappeared near the edge of the garden, close to a decorative water channel that glowed faintly with bioluminescent algae. Marcus crouched behind a statue, watching. The figure was small, humanoid in shape, but its movements were unnatural, calculated, and silent. Whoever, or whatever, it had a mission. Marcus activated a small device on his wrist, a combination of human sensor technology and Violean energy detection. A faint blip appeared on the display. Life form detected, moving fast, heading toward the palace corridors. Marcus's instincts screamed at him. This was no casual trespasser. The queen's life could be at stake. He followed at a distance, using shadows and architectural features for cover. The corridors of the palace were unlike any he had encountered. Walls of flowing energy-shifted colors as he passed, and gravity fields subtly altered the weight of his steps. Marcus had to constantly adjust, his human body compensating for forces unfamiliar yet obeyable with discipline and focus. As he rounded a corner, he noticed something alarming. One of the palace doors, normally locked and guarded, was slightly ajar. A faint, almost imperceptible hum of energy leaked from within. Marcus crouched low, observing. The shadow slipped inside and the door swung shut behind it. Marcus touched his communicator. "This is Captain Hale," he said in a low voice. "I've detected unauthorized movement in the palace interior. Potential threat to the Queen. Requesting immediate monitoring and support." Waiting could cost lives. He moved closer to the door, listening. Inside, he could hear faint whispers, mechanical clicks, and the sound of careful, precise movement. Whoever was inside knew the palace layout intimately. This was no random intruder, it was a planned intrusion. He decided he had to investigate further. He accessed his wrist device to send a covert energy pulse that would reveal hidden cloaked entities. Within moments, the sensor pinged. Two life forms, humanoid, moving rapidly, cloaked in advanced stealth technology. Marcus's mind raced. The Queen was scheduled to appear in the ceremonial hall in less than an hour. If these intruders reached her before detection, the palace's defenses might be too slow. Marcus considered alerting her immediately, but that could cause panic, and if the Queen misjudged the threat, the intruders could exploit hesitation. He had only one choice. He would intercept the intruders himself, using every advantage his human instincts offered. Marcus moved swiftly through a service corridor, the pulse blade at his side. His movements were quiet, precise, and calculated. Humans often relied on improvisation, and Marcus was doing just that, thinking several steps ahead while adapting to alien technology and terrain. As he approached the ceremonial hall, he noticed more subtle signs of the intruders' presence: displaced objects, faint energy residue on the floor, and slight temperature fluctuations. Marcus recognized these patterns immediately. They were markers left unconsciously by the intruders, signs of their path and intent. He crouched in a shadow near the main entrance, watching the doors. The Queen would arrive any moment. His human mind ran through contingencies, trying to find the least disruptive way to neutralize the threat without alarming the court. He could not rely solely on brute force. This was an alien environment, and every misstep could escalate into disaster. Then he heard it, the softest click, almost inaudible to anyone else. The intruders had reached the inner sanctum of the ceremonial hall. Marcus's heart rate increased, but his focus sharpened. He moved closer, slipping past a decorative energy barrier that would normally alert the guards. The intruders paused, unaware of his presence. One produced a small device, aiming it at the Queen's future position. Marcus recognized the danger immediately. It was a disruptor, capable of temporarily nullifying the energy shields protecting her. Without hesitation, Marcus activated a small pulse from his wrist device, causing the disruptor to flicker and misfire. The intruders reacted, confused, and Marcus seized the moment. He moved swiftly, placing himself between the device and the hall entrance. He did not engage in direct combat. He didn't need to. The intruders were momentarily delayed, and he had bought precious seconds. From his vantage point, he could see the Queen approaching with her retinue, unaware of the danger that had lurked just moments before. Marcus prepared to intervene directly if necessary, knowing that every second counted. His human adaptability, his ability to assess and react without relying solely on protocol, had given him the edge. Even as the tension built, Marcus felt a quiet satisfaction. He had anticipated the threat, detected the intruders, and positioned himself to protect the Queen. The palace, with all its alien sophistication, could have failed in this moment, but human instinct had filled the gap. And as the Queen drew closer, bathed in the golden light of the twin suns, Marcus understood one thing clearly. Survival, in this galaxy of wonders and dangers, often depended not on advanced technology, alien wisdom, or even sheer power, but on courage, quick thinking, and the human capacity to act when the moment demanded it most. Marcus waited, hidden in the shadows of the ceremonial hall, as the Queen's entourage passed. The soft glow of the twin suns filtered through the large crystalline windows, illuminating the polished floors and the intricate patterns etched into the walls. Every detail of the palace seemed designed to impress, yet Marcus's focus was entirely on the movement of the intruders. He knew that their failure here could cost not only the Queen's life, but also the fragile trust between humans and Virelians. The intruders had vanished behind a side corridor, and Marcus quickly followed. He had learned to move silently, a skill honed from countless missions on worlds where stealth was survival. The corridors twisted in ways that seemed impossible to a human eye, floors bending at subtle angles, walls that shimmered to hide passages. But Marcus relied on instinct and careful observation to navigate. His pulse blade hung at his side ready, though he hoped it would not be needed. He preferred prevention over confrontation. As he approached the hidden corridor, Marcus detected faint energy fluctuations, a subtle disturbance in the air. The intruders were using devices that masked their presence from standard sensors. Human intuition, he thought, sometimes detected what technology could not. He crouched low, watching the corridor, analyzing the shadows, the faint noises, and the way the light shifted. One of the intruders paused, scanning the area as if sensing something wrong. Marcus held his breath. He could see the small device in the intruder's hand, a disruptor capable of disabling energy shields. The implications were clear. If this device reached the Queen, her protective field would collapse, leaving her vulnerable. Marcus's mind raced. He had seconds to act. The corridor was narrow, giving him limited space to maneuver. He could not engage both intruders at once, and calling for backup risked alerting them to the Queen's location. He needed a distraction, something clever, fast, and precise. He quickly scanned the area for tools. A nearby maintenance panel hummed with low energy. Marcus activated a pulse from his wrist device, overloading the panel briefly and sending sparks cascading down the corridor. The intruders recoiled, startled, giving Marcus the opening he needed. He moved silently to a position above them, crouching on a narrow ledge that ran along the wall. From there, he could observe without being seen. The intruders recovered quickly, continuing toward the main chamber. Marcus noted the way they moved, coordinated, efficient, and deliberate. These were not amateurs. They had training, and their objective was clear. The human mind, he reminded himself, often excels in improvisation and unpredictable thinking, a trait the intruders could not anticipate. Marcus made his move. Using a small device, he emitted a localized energy pulse directly in front of the intruders, creating a temporary force field. The field was harmless but startling, and it disrupted the disruptor's alignment. One intruder swore under their breath in a language Marcus did not understand, and they both froze for a moment. Marcus slipped past them, silent as a shadow, and reached the corridor's end. At the corner, he spotted a security console linked to the palace's monitoring system. It was far more advanced than any human device he had seen, but Marcus had studied enough of Virelian technology to navigate its basic functions. He accessed the console, rerouting security cameras and enabling motion sensors along the intruder's path. If the Queen moved into the ceremonial hall now, she would be protected by automated defenses he had quietly activated. Even as he worked, Marcus realized the scope of the threat. The intruders were not acting alone. Someone inside the palace had orchestrated this. A betrayal from within was far more dangerous than an external attack. Marcus's mind traced the possibilities: members of the council who opposed human involvement, advisors jealous of the Queen's influence, or perhaps factions seeking control over the planet's energy resources. He had to act fast. If the Queen entered the hall without knowing the threat, she could be caught off guard. Marcus weighed his options carefully. Alerting her directly was risky. She might misinterpret his warning or, worse, panic in a public setting. Yet the alternative, remaining silent, was unacceptable. Humanity's reputation, his own honor, and the Queen's life were all at stake. Marcus took a deep breath and activated his wrist communicator. He sent a discreet signal, a prearranged code used for emergencies only. Within moments, the Queen's personal assistant, a trusted Virelian aide, acknowledged the signal. Marcus kept his voice low, explaining the situation in clear, concise terms. The aide's multifaceted eyes widened, and a subtle nod indicated that she understood. The Queen, Lysara, was approaching the hall now, accompanied by her retinue. Marcus moved to position himself along her path, close enough to intervene but not so close as to cause alarm. His presence alone was a statement, the human guard who had earned her trust through discipline, vigilance, and courage. As Lysara entered the ceremonial hall, Marcus observed every movement. The intruders had split up, one heading toward the left flank and the other toward the main dais. Marcus calculated their timing, predicting when each would attempt to deploy their disruptor. He adjusted his stance, ready to block, intercept, or redirect as necessary. The first intruder moved with precision, but Marcus anticipated the action. He extended a small energy net from his wrist device, capturing the disruptor before it could be activated. Sparks flew, and the intruder cursed, their movements frantic for a moment before regaining composure. Marcus remained calm, a human anchor amid alien chaos. The queen paused, sensing a subtle disturbance but not yet understanding its nature. Marcus approached with measured steps, his voice steady. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "there is a threat in the hall. Immediate action is required." Energy barriers shimmered to life around the hall, and automated systems activated, creating layers of protection that the intruders had not anticipated. The second intruder hesitated, realizing their advantage was gone. Marcus moved swiftly, positioning himself between the intruder and the queen. Using a combination of human improvisation and careful timing, he forced the intruder into a corner, blocking their escape. The disruptor, now useless, clattered to the floor. The intruder lunged, but Marcus sidestepped, guiding them toward a containment field. The palace systems engaged, holding the intruder in place without harm. Marcus felt a surge of relief, but he remained alert. The situation was under control for now, yet the larger threat, the internal betrayal, remained unresolved. The queen looked at Marcus, her expression a mixture of relief and gratitude. "You acted quickly," she said, her voice calm yet firm. "You saved lives today. Someone inside the palace is orchestrating this." Today, he had demonstrated courage, adaptability, and critical thinking, the qualities that set humans apart. Even as the immediate threat was neutralized, Marcus knew the danger was far from over. The intruders were skilled, organized, and motivated. They would regroup, and the internal conspirators would not hesitate to strike again. Marcus began planning, mapping every potential vulnerability in the palace and preparing contingencies for every possible scenario. He spent the next hour coordinating with the Queen's aide and trusted members of the High Guard, reinforcing security and setting up observation points. Every detail mattered: doorways, ventilation shafts, communication lines, even the placement of decorative energy crystals that could conceal movement. Marcus's human mind, trained to improvise and anticipate, excelled in this environment. By mid-afternoon, the palace had returned to a semblance of calm. The queen resumed her duties, walking among her court with quiet authority. Marcus remained vigilant, positioned near the ceremonial hall, observing every movement with unwavering focus. He knew the intruders were only the beginning. The real challenge lay in uncovering the conspiracy and preventing further attempts on the queen's life. As he watched the bustling palace life continue, Marcus reflected on the events of the morning. Humans were often underestimated, yet in moments like these, their courage and ingenuity could tip the balance. The Violians had technology, experience, and tradition, but the unpredictable, adaptable human mind had proven its value. Marcus allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction, knowing he had fulfilled his duty and earned a measure of trust, but he could not rest. The palace walls, beautiful and imposing, concealed more than they revealed. Marcus had learned long ago that true vigilance meant anticipating threats before they became visible. He returned to the observation console, reviewing security feeds and sensor data. Every anomaly, no matter how small, was recorded and analyzed. Marcus's eyes were sharp, scanning patterns that others might overlook. He detected faint traces of energy disruptions, subtle movements in the corridors, and unusual shifts in palace staff routines. All signs pointed to one truth: the conspirators were still inside, hidden, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Marcus's resolve hardened. He would not fail. Not for the queen, not for the humans who had trusted him, and not for the fragile alliance that now depended on his vigilance. Humanity had been given a chance to prove itself, and Marcus would ensure that proof was undeniable. The twin suns dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the palace. Marcus stood watch, silent and alert, ready for whatever came next. He had faced danger before, but this was different. This was a test of human ingenuity against cunning, deception, and alien technology. And Marcus knew, deep in his bones, that humans could rise to any challenge if they trusted their instincts, acted with courage, and never underestimated the power of quick thinking. The city of Violia never truly slept. Even as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, their fading light left the sky awash with soft gold and violet. Streets glimmered with bioluminescent plants, and hovercrafts traced arcs of light as they navigated the airways. In the midst of this alien splendor, Marcus Hale moved with purpose. The queen's life had been saved for now, but the threat lingered, hidden and patient, like a shadow waiting to strike again. Marcus had spent hours reviewing the palace's surveillance data. The intruders had left subtle traces of energy residue, patterns that most Virelian guards would not notice. But Marcus's human instincts picked up on every anomaly. He traced their path from the ceremonial hall through service corridors, noticing that some doors had been tampered with and a few energy nodes subtly recalibrated. Whoever orchestrated this was meticulous, methodical, and dangerously clever. He checked in briefly with the Queen's aide, a small, luminescent being named Tyra. Her voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed concern. "Captain Hale, the Palace Council is beginning to question the security measures. Some doubt your methods." Humanity's role on Virelia was fragile. Humans were allies, yes, but outsiders, and some factions resented their influence. The intruders were likely connected to one of these factions. Marcus knew he had to act quickly and carefully, or the next strike could succeed. He left the palace under the cover of twilight. The streets below were alive with activity, yet Marcus moved through them unnoticed. His human training had taught him to blend into any environment, to read patterns of movement and predict behavior. He followed the energy traces, a faint residual signature that pulsed like a heartbeat, leading him toward the city's industrial district. The district was a labyrinth of metallic towers and energy conduits, humming with power. Steam vents hissed into the night, and the air smelled faintly of ozone. Marcus crouched behind a stack of energy crates, observing a group of figures moving along a raised walkway. The intruders. They carried small, sleek devices and communicated in hushed tones, their language alien, yet their intent unmistakable. Marcus's pulse quickened, but his mind remained calm. He had faced hostile forces before, yet never with such a high-value target at stake. He needed information, not confrontation, at least for now. He activated a miniature drone from his wrist device, sending it silently above the walkway. The drone's camera transmitted a live feed directly to his HUD. He watched as the intruders accessed a hidden console, one that controlled energy flows in the district. Marcus realized the scope of their plan. They were trying to disrupt the city's power grid, which would compromise the palace's defenses and create chaos. In that chaos, an attack on the Queen would be far easier to execute. Marcus made a decision. He would follow them closer, mapping their movements, while preparing a contingency to protect both the palace and the city. Humans were adaptable, he reminded himself, and adaptability was his greatest strength. The intruders might have advanced technology, but they could not anticipate the unpredictability of human thought. He moved silently along catwalks and narrow alleys, staying in shadows, until he reached a vantage point above the intruders. From there, he could see not only their devices, but also the layout of the area. He noticed something alarming. The energy nodes they were tampering with were connected to a subnetwork that controlled palace shields remotely. If they succeeded, the Queen's personal protection would fail at the worst possible moment. Marcus activated a low-frequency pulse, small enough to disrupt the intruders' devices without triggering a full-scale alarm. Sparks flickered across the nodes, and the intruders cursed in their language. One of them looked up, scanning the area. Marcus held his breath, frozen in shadow. After a tense moment, the intruders resumed their work, unaware that a human was tracking every step. He knew he could not confront them directly without risking exposure. Instead, he used his wrist device to mark their positions and movements. He planned to report back to the Queen's aide and the palace guard, coordinating a precise strike to neutralize the threat. Timing would be critical. Too early, and the intruders could escape. Too late, and the palace might be compromised. As he moved along a narrow ledge, Marcus noticed another figure approaching the intruders. A human, cloaked and masked. His pulse skipped. Could another human be involved? Marcus had to assess the situation quickly. He watched as the figure joined the group, communicating with subtle gestures and pointing to the devices. Clearly, this person was helping the intruders. Marcus's mind raced. A human working with the enemy complicated everything. He had to prevent exposure, protect the Queen, and gather evidence, all without revealing himself. He decided on a bold plan. He would create a controlled diversion, separate the intruders from the human ally, and capture the devices. He activated a small energy pulse near one of the conduit towers. Sparks flew, and the lights flickered. The intruders reacted immediately, splitting up to investigate. Marcus seized the moment, dropping quietly behind the human ally. Using a combination of human agility and careful timing, he disarmed the ally, forcing them to drop a device. Marcus quickly secured it, hiding it under his jacket. The ally struggled, but Marcus maintained control. "Who sent you?" he demanded quietly, his voice firm. The human remained silent, eyes wide with fear. Marcus realized that intimidation alone would not work. Instead, he used the wrist device to transmit a recording of the Allies' movements and the intruders' positions to the Queen's aid. Within moments, palace security was on alert, ready to move at Marcus's signal. He released the ally and stepped back into the shadows, blending into the environment once again. The intruders, unaware of the disruption, continued their work. Marcus observed, gathering more data, noting the patterns, timing, and weaknesses. Every detail would be crucial in planning the next intervention. Hours passed, and the city's night deepened. Marcus moved methodically, never leaving cover, never losing focus. He was human, yes, but humans excelled in situations like this, unpredictable, complex, and high stakes. He used his instincts, training, and intellect to stay one step ahead of the intruders. Finally, he saw them begin to retreat, sensing that something had gone wrong. Marcus followed at a distance, ensuring they did not escape the district. He noted their path back to a hidden dockyard, a place likely unknown to the palace and most Virelians. Marcus realized that this dockyard was their base of operations, where the real threat, the planning and coordination, took place. He reported everything back to the Queen's aid, transmitting maps, energy readings, and the path the intruders had taken. Tyra's voice was calm but tinged with urgency. "Captain Hale, the palace is preparing a counter-operation. Your information will be vital, but you must remain vigilant. The conspirators may anticipate our actions now." He knew the dockyard would be heavily guarded and possibly trapped. He would need to be cautious yet decisive. Human ingenuity, he reminded himself, often outmatched brute strength or technology. He would use strategy, timing, and quick thinking to confront the intruders. As he approached the dockyard, Marcus observed the gates from a distance. Automated sensors and security drones patrolled the perimeter, yet he noted a pattern, predictable pauses in their patrol, brief moments when the area was less monitored. This was his window. Humans, he reflected, had always survived by observing patterns and exploiting opportunities others overlooked. Marcus moved closer, using shadows and elevated walkways to remain unseen. He noticed crates and containers marked with alien symbols, some of which had been tampered with. These contained the devices the intruders had used in the palace and possibly more powerful tools intended for future attacks. He activated his wrist device, sending a low-frequency pulse to disrupt minor security nodes, creating a small, localized blackout. The intruders inside paused, confused. Marcus slipped through the breach, moving silently among the containers. He could feel his heart pounding, but his focus remained sharp. Every step mattered. Inside the dockyard, he saw the intruders regrouping, preparing to transport devices to a secondary location. Marcus noted the human ally among them, now working under direction. He realized he could not delay any longer. He needed to neutralize the threat here and gather evidence of the conspiracy. Using a combination of agility, precise timing, and careful observation, Marcus created a series of diversions. Containers toppled, small energy pulses disabled equipment temporarily, and shadows shifted to confuse the intruders. In moments of chaos, he secured several devices and moved them out of reach, ensuring they could not be used against the Queen or the city. The intruders reacted, searching for the source of the disruption. Marcus remained unseen, silent, calculating every move. He understood that direct confrontation could escalate dangerously, so he relied on strategy and misdirection. Slowly, methodically, he guided the intruders toward a containment area prepared remotely by palace security, using the information he had transmitted earlier. By dawn, the intruders were captured or trapped, and the dockyard was secured. Marcus emerged from the shadows, exhausted but resolute. He contacted the Queen's aid, confirming that the threat had been contained, for now. As the first light of the twin suns touched the city, Marcus reflected on the night's events. Humanity's strength, he realized, was not in advanced technology or raw power, but in adaptability, courage, and the ability to think under pressure. Today, humans had proven themselves indispensable allies, capable of protecting a civilization far more advanced than themselves. Marcus knew the danger was not over. The internal conspiracy still existed, and the Queen's life remained at risk. But he had learned much about the intruders, their methods, and their weaknesses, and he was ready. He returned to the palace, the city waking around him, carrying with him both the evidence of the night's work and the quiet satisfaction of a human who had once again risen to meet a challenge that no one else could. Humanity had acted decisively, intelligently, and courageously. And Marcus Hale, a single human guard, had made a difference that would echo through the halls of Virlia for years to come. The palace of Virlia was quiet in the early morning, yet Marcus Hale could feel the weight of unseen eyes. The city outside shimmered in the soft glow of the rising twin suns, but within the palace walls, the tension was palpable. He had succeeded in intercepting the intruders at the dockyard, yet he knew their operation was only part of a larger plan. Someone high in the palace hierarchy was orchestrating this chaos, and the conspiracy ran deeper than he could yet trace. Marcus walked along the elevated corridors, his eyes scanning every detail. The Queen, Lysara, was meeting with her council, but Marcus was not called to attend. Instead, he had been tasked with surveillance, observing, analyzing, and reporting. His human instincts, honed through years of experience in unpredictable environments, told him this was the most dangerous assignment he had ever faced. Trust was fragile here, and one mistake could cost lives. As he rounded a corner, Marcus noticed something unusual. A small group of palace staff had gathered near an energy conduit, whispering urgently and glancing around nervously. He paused, observing from the shadows. One of them slipped a sealed envelope into a ventilation duct, concealing it carefully. Marcus's pulse quickened. Secret messages moving through the palace. This was evidence of the internal conspiracy he had suspected. He needed to follow the trail, but he also had to remain unnoticed. Marcus activated a small device on his wrist that allowed him to track subtle energy fluctuations in the air, traces left by tampered conduits, hidden passages, and minor breaches in security. The envelope, he realized, had a faint energy signature that he could follow without touching or disturbing it. Moving silently through hidden passages, Marcus traced the envelope to a secluded room behind the palace library. The door was slightly ajar, revealing shadows moving inside. He pressed against the wall, listening. Inside, a group of council members and advisors whispered urgently, their voices low but tense. Marcus could not understand their words, but the tone told him enough. They were planning something significant, and the Queen was at the center of it. Marcus needed proof. He activated a miniature recording device, placing it just inside the doorway. The device was small, barely noticeable, and capable of capturing both visual and audio data. For several tense minutes, he watched as the conspirators discussed schedules, security weaknesses, and their next target. Marcus realized the plan was not only to harm the Queen, but also to destabilize the alliance between humans and Virlians. It was a calculated effort to undermine trust and create chaos. With evidence in hand, Marcus retreated silently, retracing his path through the hidden corridors. The weight of the conspiracy pressed on him, but his resolve hardened. Humanity's role on Virlia depended not only on courage, but on intelligence, strategy, and decisiveness. He had to act carefully. Any misstep could alert the conspirators or put the Queen in danger. Marcus returned to the observation deck, reviewing the data he had collected. The recordings showed clear signs of planning and intent, enough to convince even the most skeptical council members of the threat. He transmitted the files securely to the Queen's aide, Tyra, along with his own analysis and recommendations. Tyra's reply was swift, her voice calm but filled with urgency. "Captain Hale, this confirms our worst fears. The Council is divided. We will act discreetly to secure the Queen and apprehend the conspirators, but you must remain vigilant. Their next move may be imminent." He prepared for the day ahead, reviewing security protocols, adjusting surveillance parameters, and setting contingency plans. Marcus understood the value of unpredictability. Humans excelled when plans shifted unexpectedly, when challenges required improvisation and creativity. The conspirators relied on procedure and careful timing. Marcus relied on intuition, adaptability, and the ability to act decisively in critical moments. By midday, the Queen emerged from her private chambers, resuming her official duties. Marcus observed discreetly, noting every interaction, every subtle shift in demeanor. The Queen was composed, regal, and calm, but Marcus sensed a quiet tension beneath her exterior. She knew in part of the threats against her life, yet she did not let fear dictate her actions. Her confidence inspired those around her, and Marcus understood that protecting her required more than physical readiness. It required foresight, vigilance, and strategy. As the day progressed, Marcus detected subtle anomalies in palace operations. Doors that should have remained closed were ajar, energy readings flickered in ways that suggested tampering, and some staff exhibited unusual behavior. Marcus moved silently, investigating each irregularity. He discovered minor traps set along key corridors, disruptors intended to delay palace security in the event of an attack. Marcus deactivated them one by one, using a combination of human intuition and alien technology. Each success strengthened his confidence and reinforced the idea that humans, though young in this galaxy, could influence outcomes decisively. In the late afternoon, Marcus noticed the intruders from the previous night regrouping near the palace perimeter. They had been reinforced, now numbering more than before, and they moved with coordinated precision. Marcus analyzed their movements, predicting their likely approach. He prepared intercept points, diversion plans, and escape routes, relying on the palace layout and his own experience to create a strategic advantage. As dusk approached, the intruders launched their next attempt, moving through the shadows toward the palace. Marcus monitored them closely, waiting for the right moment to act. Using a combination of stealth, calculated noise distractions, and temporary energy disruptions, he delayed their advance, buying critical time for palace defenses to mobilize. His human ingenuity allowed him to anticipate patterns and exploit gaps that the intruders assumed were secure. The queen, alerted discreetly by Tyra, moved to a secure location within the palace. Marcus remained close, positioning himself to intervene directly if necessary. The intruders attempted to breach the palace gates, but Marcus's preparations and strategic placement of energy barriers thwarted them. The attackers were forced into a narrow corridor where palace security could contain them without risking the queen's safety. Marcus moved swiftly, ensuring the devices they carried were neutralized and that the intruders could not regroup. He coordinated with palace guards, directing their attention to critical points while maintaining his own observation of the overall situation. The operation was precise, controlled, and effective, demonstrating the unique value of human adaptability combined with Virelian technology. As the confrontation ended, the intruders were secured, and the immediate threat was neutralized. Marcus reported the results to Tyra, who relayed the information to the queen. Lysara, though composed, allowed herself a brief smile, acknowledging the human guard's crucial role in defending her life and the stability of the palace. Marcus reflected on the events of the day. The conspiracy within the palace was more extensive than he had initially realized, but each move he made demonstrated that humans could rise to challenges that required intelligence, courage, and improvisation. His actions had prevented catastrophe, safeguarded the queen, and reinforced the trust between humans and Virelians. As night fell over Virelia, Marcus remained vigilant. He knew the conspirators were not finished, and the battle for the queen's safety was ongoing. Yet he felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that humanity's contribution was undeniable. Adaptability, courage, and quick thinking had once again proven decisive in a galaxy of advanced civilizations and complex politics. The city shimmered under the twin moons, a reminder that even in the midst of beauty and wonder, danger could emerge without warning. Marcus stood watch, alert, and ready, confident that humans, despite being newcomers to this world, could protect what they valued most. The night was far from over, and the challenges ahead would test him further, but Marcus Hale was prepared to meet them, relying on the very qualities that made humans exceptional: instinct, ingenuity, and the courage to act when it mattered most. The palace of Virelia lay under the soft glow of the twin moons, casting long shadows across the corridors. Marcus Hale moved cautiously, his pulse steady, but his mind alert. The past days had revealed a conspiracy that ran deep within the palace walls, targeting Queen Lysara herself. Every corner, every doorway, and every shadow now demanded vigilance. Humanity's role in this alien world depended on his actions tonight. Marcus had reviewed every piece of intelligence he had gathered. The intruders intercepted at the dockyard were only the first layer of the plot. The council members who had orchestrated the attacks were still at large, using trusted palace staff to cover their plans. Their ultimate goal was clear: destabilize the queen's rule and fracture the alliance between humans and Virelians. Marcus understood that the stakes were higher than ever. Failure was not an option. He moved silently through the palace corridors, checking surveillance feeds and recalibrating energy sensors. Every anomaly, every minor deviation in normal patterns was carefully noted. Marcus had learned that the conspirators were meticulous, relying on timing, coordination, and hidden weaknesses in the palace infrastructure. His human advantage lay in unpredictability. he could act in ways they would not anticipate. The queen had been informed of the situation discreetly. She remained calm, her presence in the palace a steady force of authority. Marcus had positioned a small team of trusted palace guards, both human and Virelian, at key points. The queen's safety depended not only on physical security, but on careful planning, coordination, and quick thinking. Marcus's mind was a web of contingencies, each path designed to protect her while revealing the conspirators. As the night deepened, Marcus detected subtle signs of movement, energy fluctuations near the council chambers, small shadows slipping through service passages, and unusual communication patterns among staff. The conspirators were initiating their next move. Marcus acted swiftly, positioning himself along the most likely path they would take. Every step, every breath, and every decision was calculated. Humanity's strength was in adaptability and intuition, and he relied on both fully. The first group of conspirators approached the Queen's private quarters, aiming to use a combination of stealth and tampered energy locks to breach the area. Marcus activated a low-frequency pulse, temporarily disabling their devices and creating confusion. The conspirators paused, scanning for the source. Marcus slipped through a side corridor, positioning himself behind them. He did not engage in direct combat immediately. Instead, he created a sequence of diversions. Energy conduits sparked, lights flickered, and subtle sounds echoed through the halls. The conspirators moved instinctively, assuming the disruptions were malfunctions. Marcus used their reactions against them, guiding them into areas where palace security could intercept without alerting the queen or causing harm. In the shadows, Marcus observed another conspirator attempting to manipulate a central console that controlled multiple defense systems. This individual was clever, moving quickly to bypass protocols. Marcus approached silently and used a combination of human intuition and alien technology to override the controls. The system recalibrated, restoring full security and trapping the conspirator. The remaining conspirators regrouped, realizing their plan was failing. Marcus anticipated their next move, predicting their attempt to escape through the lower service tunnels. He moved swiftly, intercepting them at a narrow junction. Using precise maneuvers, he neutralized their devices and guided them into containment areas. Every action was measured, calculated, and effective. Humanity's ability to improvise had once again tipped the balance. Meanwhile, Queen Lysara, aware of the unfolding events through Tyra's discreet updates, moved confidently through the palace, her presence a stabilizing force for her loyal staff. She understood Marcus's role and trusted his judgment completely. The conspirators, seeing their plan unravel, attempted one final desperate strike, targeting the palace's energy core to disable shields and create chaos. Marcus anticipated this and moved to the core chamber ahead of them. The corridor leading to the chamber was narrow and heavily monitored. He positioned himself strategically, using both human agility and the palace's architecture to his advantage. When the conspirators arrived, they were confronted not by overwhelming force but by Marcus's clever use of environment. Energy fields redirected, doors sealed remotely, and paths blocked subtly but decisively. A tense standoff ensued. The conspirators, skilled and armed with advanced devices, realized they had underestimated the human guard. Marcus held his ground, calm and alert. His presence was not just physical but symbolic, a human, relying on courage, intelligence, and adaptability, protecting an entire civilization's leader. One conspirator lunged, attempting to bypass the barriers, but Marcus anticipated the move. Using precise timing, he redirected the attacker into a containment field activated moments earlier. Sparks flew, energy pulses hummed, and within seconds the threat was neutralized. Marcus did not need to fight all of them directly. Strategy, foresight, and decisive action had done the work. The Queen's aide, Tyra, coordinated with remaining loyal guards to secure the council chambers and other sensitive areas. Marcus moved through the palace, ensuring no devices were left active, no passages remained open for escape, and no conspirators could regroup. The palace, with its intricate systems and advanced technology, was secure again. When the immediate danger passed, Marcus debriefed the Queen. "Your Majesty," he said, "the conspirators have been contained, all devices neutralized, the palace is secure." Humanity has proven itself a valuable partner in ways words cannot describe. In the following days, palace investigations revealed the full extent of the conspiracy. Council members involved were brought to justice, and many trusted staff were questioned thoroughly. Marcus provided evidence, recordings, and analysis, all collected through careful observation, strategic action, and human ingenuity. The Queen's acknowledgement of his role strengthened trust between humans and Virealians, creating a precedent for future collaboration. Marcus also took the opportunity to implement subtle improvements in palace security. The Virealians were advanced, but humans offered a unique perspective, adaptability, creative problem-solving, and rapid decision-making under pressure. Marcus suggested new protocols, blending human intuition with Virealian technology, creating systems that were stronger, faster, and less predictable. The Queen held a council meeting to formally recognize Marcus's contribution. "Captain Marcus Hale," she said, her voice carrying through the chamber, "has not only saved my life but has demonstrated the value of human courage, intellect, and adaptability. His actions remind us that strength is not only measured by power, but by the mind, the will, and the courage to act when it matters most." He realized that humanity's place in this galaxy depended on these qualities, and he was proud to represent them. In the days that followed, Marcus continued his duties, now recognized as more than a guard. He was a trusted advisor and protector. He trained Virealian guards in human methods of surveillance, improvisation, and problem-solving. The palace became safer, not just because of technology, but because of the human ability to think creatively under pressure. Marcus often walked the palace corridors at night, reflecting on the events that had unfolded. The twin moons cast long, silver shadows, and the city shimmered below. He understood that danger could return at any moment, yet he also knew that humans, with their courage, adaptability, and intelligence, could rise to meet any challenge. Queen Lysira occasionally joined him on these walks, sharing thoughts about governance, security, and diplomacy. Marcus listened and advised, offering perspectives that were uniquely human yet complementary to Virealian wisdom. Together, they strengthened the bond between their peoples, proving that collaboration between species could achieve remarkable outcomes. One evening, as the palace lights glimmered against the dark sky, Marcus looked out over the city and thought about the future. Humanity had shown its value, but this was only the beginning. Challenges would come, threats would rise, and conspiracies would test them again. Yet humans had demonstrated that they could adapt, survive, and protect not only themselves but entire civilizations. Marcus understood that his actions, though driven by duty and instinct, had a lasting impact. He had saved a life, prevented chaos, and strengthened the alliance between humans and Virealians. In doing so, he had proven that even a single human, guided by courage and ingenuity, could change the course of events on a galactic scale. The Queen approached, her presence calm and reassuring. "Captain Hale," she said, "today, humanity has earned a place among the guardians of Virealia. Your actions have inspired not only me but countless others. Never underestimate the power of instinct, courage, and the will to act. You have saved lives, strengthened alliances, and reminded us all that intelligence and courage are universal qualities, not bound to any one species. You have made history, Captain Hale." The night was quiet, the immediate danger gone, yet the galaxy remained vast, full of uncertainty and challenge. He knew humans would face trials beyond imagination, but tonight they had proven their worth. Humanity had risen to the occasion, saving a life, preserving trust, and securing a future. Marcus Hale, a human guard, had done what no one else could. And in doing so, he had shown the galaxy what humans were capable of: courage, ingenuity, and the ability to make a difference when it mattered most. The city of Virealia gleamed below him, peaceful and safe for now, and Marcus allowed himself a moment of quiet pride. Humanity had not only survived, it had triumphed not through brute force, but through intellect, instinct, and the courage to act. And that triumph, he knew, would echo far beyond the walls of the palace, inspiring trust, collaboration, and hope for generations to come.